The first problem I want to discuss is empirical. Does the evidence really support the claim that information and communication technologies enhance learning? And the second is conceptual. What do we mean by learning? And is our very conception of learning changing? And of course these are linked. But although the once outlandish idea of technology skills, digital skills, becoming a third skill for life, alongside literacy and numeracy, this idea is becoming accepted. But the task of saying, conceptually and empirically, what we really mean by that is a difficult one. It must be said that the considerable financial investment in getting computers and the internet into schools and homes has not been largely directed to enhancing media or even digital literacy. Rather, the educational benefits are all about transfer. That technologies can aid traditional learning outcomes in the traditional subjects, that technology can compensate for particular forms of disadvantage, and that technologies, that information and communication technologies can enable and even radically transform learning outcomes. But the evidence that technology aids traditional learning outcomes is lacking. A major longitudinal British study evaluating technology in schools programme reported like this. Essentially, the initiatives are better at improving pupils' achievement in ICT capability than in their application of this learning to other subjects. And then the delightful psychologist's statement: some of the findings are significant and some of the findings are not significant. A couple of years ago, there was a report to Congress in this country which similarly found that test scores in classrooms using reading and mathematics software for 1 year were no different from those using traditional teaching materials. That study found some indication that more use of software technologies improves results for reading, but not for mathematics. A review of all the research done in Europe, which is not very much, concluded as follows. A bit more positive, but not that much. And we get these kind of confused findings. Technology helps some subjects and not others. One finds it helps reading and not maths, another finds it helps maths and nothing else. The findings are confused, and evaluations seem to throw up these kind of ad hoc patterns of findings, which at the moment are defeating our explanation. Part of it might be about this relation between home and school, which we're trying to change at the same time as we change what's going on within schools. So a qualitative piece of research conducted in Britain argues, as do many, that because pupils experience computers and the internet more positively at home, they find school constraining their autonomy, their flexibility, and their ability to experiment. So that qualitative study argues that teachers have got to do much more effort to build on pupils' out-of-school experience so that they can bring that experience into the school. A more optimistic review, but still reasonably, there's lots of these out there, says the evidence seems to point to an impact on attainment where ICT is an integral part of the day-to-day learning experience in schools, but, and yet again they always put this, the weight of evidence is insufficient to draw firm conclusions. So if the technology is an integral part of the day-to-day learning experiences of pupils, which of course we would all want to argue for, we have to acknowledge that this is highly resource intensive. So after watching teachers struggle in classrooms with the technologies, Ellen Saiter observes as follows: the hours of trial and error that many digital skills require and the freedom to develop a deep understanding are nearly impossible to practice in a public school setting. Surveys of teachers find that teachers, when faced with altering their practice, focus mainly on the development of technical skills and set to one side or postpone until later that expectation that the technologies will become embedded in all aspects of their teaching and learning practice. So the payoff is not proven and the demands are considerable. Here's another study suggesting that findings look that there might be a positive association between providing technology and helping student achievement. But when you control for family background and all the other things, in fact, they find that things got worse and that the availability of computers at home seemed to distract students from effective learning. In other words, what they found was that those who sometimes use computers or the internet at school perform better than those who never use it, but those who use them often perform worse. And so any simple increase in provision doesn't enhance educational performance. More positive evidence may be sparse, but it does exist. The HomeNet 2 study, which gave computers and an internet connection to low-income families, along with technical backup, which I've been arguing for in Britain as well, did find that simply providing the connection improved school achievement over a 1.5-year period as a direct function of how much internet use. So this is Linda Jackson's work finding that GPAs went up on standardised tests, especially in reading, when children use the internet at home more. And she makes a causal argument. There aren't very many of those out there. Arguing that it's not that it's already high-achieving children who know what to do with the internet and get more out of it, but rather the increased internet use resulted in improvements in reading, though in fact not in maths. But when she looked at it closely, what she found was that this was really about reading printed text on the screen. It wasn't about the multimedia and hypertext functions that we might find exciting. It was about reading their printed text among kids who don't normally read. So I think the illustrious Renee Hobbs sitting here has done the most positive and most optimistic piece of research in showing that if you implement media technologies within the curriculum and then evaluate them against a control group, you can see benefits not only for their analytic and critical grasp of media representations, but also transferable benefits for pupils' reading, comprehension, critical reading and writing skills. So we need to understand better why different studies get different kinds of results. But you'll be wondering at this point whether education is in fact best assessed through increased grade point averages or reading ages or exam results. Surely the potential of the internet is far greater than this, as in fact is the potential of a child to learn. So government departments are calling for technology to improve test scores, reduce disadvantage and ensure delivery of basic skills. But critics, I think rightly, reject the lack of imagination in this agenda, seeing it wedded to a 20th, even a 19th century conception of drill and skill education, with scholastic aptitude testing as the only legitimate outcome. The alternative proposition is that digital technologies enable development in and out of the classroom of precisely the soft skills vital for meeting the demands of the 21st century global and information economy. So this is a conception of learning which capitalises on rather than excludes or cuts out the evident enthusiasm with which children use the internet for exploration, creativity and fun. It encompasses not just ICT-mediated formal education and information resources, but also the ways in which they use instant messaging, online gaming, social networking, and so on, to foster constructive learning practices, peer collaboration, and learner motivation. If one argues that the relative failure to demonstrate clear benefits of technology use in the classroom is due less to the limited potential of information and communication technologies than to the limited expectations of educationalists, then there are clearly far-reaching consequences for teacher training, classroom management and curriculum design. Such ideas lay behind my titling of this talk when I was inspired by Inanna Snyder's From Page to Screen. I don't know if people read this book, but it was published a decade ago, and I found myself wondering what changed since then.